All right, recruit, sit down. What I'm about to show you isn't just some history lesson. This is a tactical debrief. It's about how we almost lost, well, everything, and how we used our wits, some long-forgotten tech, and the very ground beneath our feet to save our people. So you better pay attention. This is the Rupturing.
You have to understand, while we were up on Mount Olympus fighting our battle, it moved differently down below. A few months for us was 400 years for them. 400 years. And for every single day of those 4 centuries, the Weaver of Calamity's forces had our people pinned down, surrounded, and pushed right to the edge of being wiped out completely.
Okay, so let's break down the strategic situation on the ground. You need to understand the absolute nightmare our people were living through. I mean, really grasp it. Because every single move we made, every tactic we came up with, it was born from that desperation.
Look at how methodical this was. This wasn't some chaotic attack. It was a slow, strangling siege. For the first century, we were just forgotten. Our actions became myths, stories you tell kids. Then, the Weaver's army starts to move in. Phase 1, cut them off from the Sea of Phoenix Tears. That was their immunity. Just gone. Phase 2, box them in, cut them off from their food supply. They were being starved out, plain and simple. This went on for centuries until the mountain itself, and yes, it's alive, got so furious that it literally ruptured, tearing itself into 4 massive pieces. And that rupture? That was the sanctuary that gave us our only shot.
So how in the world do you fight back when you're stuck inside a mountain, 400 years behind the times? The answer is you don't. You can't outfight them. You have to outthink them. This wasn't about swinging swords harder. It was about firing up the advanced, ancient technology their own ancestors had forgotten. For the villagers, this was a huge shift, realizing all the magic from their stories was real, dormant science just waiting to be switched on.
This here was our toolbox. The entire village was built around these 12 stellar systems, old-world tech that ran their whole society before it all just faded into legend. We brought them back online. Jim and I gave us instant intel on every person, every resource. The Ares and Virgo systems, they guided the weavers and architects, helping them create brand new defenses. Scorpio let us scan for resources deep inside the mountain. And then there was Sagittarius. That was our way in. It let us inhabit a chosen villager, to guide them directly without causing a massive panic.
Now, we couldn't just jump into someone's head. We had a strict protocol. First, we used Gemini to vet potential hosts. We needed someone tough, physically and mentally, because the psychic strain could literally break a person. We landed on a young shepherd, Joseph. From there, we fired up Sagittarius and established the link. The trickiest part was that first contact. Can you imagine your own reflection suddenly starts talking to you about military strategy? Yeah, we had to build trust, and we had to do it fast.
So, with our feet on the ground, so to speak, it was time to throw out the old rule book and write a new one. A head-on fight was suicide. We were outnumbered 20-1. Our only option was to turn the environment itself into a weapon.
First thing you have to understand is their Phoenix Tears immunity. It's the whole reason our people were still breathing after 400 years. The tears flowing in their blood meant the enemy couldn't hit them with direct attacks, which is why they had to resort to a siege. It was a perfect defense, but it wasn't a weapon. It bought them time, but it was never going to win them the war.
This became our mantra. Our whole strategy was built on this one idea. We had to make the land fight for us. The trees, the water, the ground they were standing on, that was our real army.
And you gotta give them credit. They were already thinking this way. Forget stone walls. They had cultivated living fortifications, a massive, dense wall of tap-rooted trees. These weren't just sitting there. They were self-sustaining, pulling water laced with Phoenix Tears from way deep underground. That made them a dynamic shield, hiding them from enemy scouts in the sky, and actively pushing back enemy forces on the ground.
Which brings me to Operation Mogura Moguram, the mole strategy. This was our masterpiece. We couldn't beat them on the surface, so we went under it. For the Giga-Wraiths at the canals, we dug a network of tunnels designed to collapse under their massive weight. For the Bloodhounds that could literally smell fear, we built tunnels that we could flood with Phoenix Tears water, paralyzing them instantly. And for the soul-draining Wraiths in the farmlands, the tunnels were secret escape routes. A custom-built trap for every single threat they threw at us.
But winning also meant not being seen. Using those reactivated systems, our weavers created this
sensory disruptor clothing. And this stuff is way more than just camo. It actually amplified light to blind enemy spotters. It had a vacuum layer to hide their scent, the fabric itself dampened sound, and conductive materials masked their body heat. This gear turned them into ghosts. They could move right through enemy lines without making a sound or leaving a trace.
All right, so now let's see how it all came together. This is the execution phase, the Battle of the Plains. This is where all the theory, the tech, and the tunnels got put to the ultimate test.
And what were they up against? 600,000. Let that number sink in. 600,000 enemy troops.
And our side? We had 5,000 horseback archers against their main force of 200,000 gigawraiths. All told, it was 30,000 of our guys against 600,000 of their nightmares. The odds were 20-1 against us. There was absolutely no room for error.
So we knew we couldn't take a direct hit from the Gigawraiths. Their main attack was this massive Hellfire blast that would have wiped us out in one go. So we came up with the Hornet's Nest. Right before they'd unleash their attack, our archers would scatter in every direction. It turned what should have been a devastating blow into, well, basically a waste of their energy.
Then, right after the blast, as the enemy would start to charge in, we'd issue the counter-command Defend the Beehive. All those scattered archers would converge in an instant, focusing all their firepower on the now exposed Gigawraiths. It was this constant fluid dance of scattering and converging, designed to wear down a much, much bigger army.
We kept up these hit-and-run tactics for one reason and one reason only: to lure the entire Gigawraith army onto the plains, right on top of our hidden tunnel network. Once they were all in the kill box, we gave the signal, Moguram Moguram. That was the cue to flood the tunnels. The ground just gave way, and their whole 200,000-strong army fell into a massive underground tomb, washed away by water infused with phoenix tears.
But the fight wasn't over. Not even close. We dealt with the heavy hitters, but there were still 200,000 wraiths left. And these things, they don't fight with brute force. They fight with fear. And you can't dig a tunnel to trap an emotion.
And that's the real question, isn't it, Recruit? This is the toughest tactical problem you'll ever face. The Wraith's main weapon is psychological. They literally take the form of your friends, your family, people you've lost. They use your own heart against you. So tell me, how do you fight that?
The answer is you can't fight it with physical weapons. This was metaphysical warfare. The Wraiths use what we call the darkness element. It doesn't just make things dark, it steals form, it conceals truth, it creates illusions. That's why physical attacks just pass right through them. The only thing that works against it is the light element. Light doesn't attack, it reveals. It burns away the illusion and shows you what's really there, and only then can they be hurt.
Now, a Guardian can't just conjure that kind of power out of thin air. For that, I had to call on the Nightmare King's chariot. And you need to understand this. My sigil, it's not a thing. It's a council. 9 living, conscious phantoms. Each one is a master of a different domain. Endergungeon controls interdimensional gates. Calmned maintains balance. Farron is the embodiment of wisdom. To defeat an enemy whose entire existence is a lie, I had to summon the combined power of 9 different kinds of truth.
So, we won. We used strategy, we used ancient tech, and we used metaphysical power to beat impossible odds. We outthought an enemy that relied on brute force and terror. But here's my final question for you, Recruit, and I want you to think about it long after you leave this room. What happens when we finally run into an enemy that can't be outthought? Dismissed.